All right, we'll call the meeting to order at 7:05. Roll call. Commissioner Broadnax.
Here.
Commissioner Lates.
Here.
I'm Chairperson, or Commissioner Gill, present, and Commissioner Edwards.
Here.
All right, and then moving on to the approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve as written.
A second?
I will second it.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And then on to the approval of the August 19th, 2024 minutes. Do we have any proposed changes, or we just move forward with a motion to approve?
I'll make a motion to approve.
I'll second.
All right, a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Awesome. Then that brings us to unfinished business, the Green Building Code. Staff?
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the commission. So we'll continue our discussion about the Green Building Code. And for just a quick briefing, the Maplewood Green Building Code was adopted in 2013 here in Maplewood. And since that time, the city has reviewed approximately We've been talking about this a while, I think I'd remember. Approximately 8 buildings under that code, 2 of those being the fire stations, both the south and the north fire station. And that code is based off of the 2012 International Green Construction Code, and then the ICC 700-2008 National Green Building Standards. And all city-funded buildings must follow the code, which includes additional energy efficiency strategies and other green building elements. So in 2013, the Environmental and Natural Resources Commission chose as one of their goals to begin reviewing that green building code. And this was spurred on by our participation in the Green Leaf program. Is that right? No, not Green Leaf, Gold Leaf, there we go, which is the sister partner, I guess, to the Green Step Cities program, and it assists cities with their climate actions. And in that participation, we were required to take a look at 2 additional climate actions and start working on those. And so the Environmental Commission chose our Green Building Code because we had some challenges with some of the buildings that were constructed. And we wanted to make sure it met the city's sustainability goals, and then also review options for electric vehicle charging station requirements and other green building initiatives. So I put together a simple staff report for you, so I wanted to take just a bit of a deeper dive here tonight. We went over 4 different green standards that we want to consider in the performance-based code. And of course, all the performance-based codes we defined that would now be included are such as LEED, SB 2030. So those types of codes, rather than adopting the amended International Green Construction Code, which has been amended about 3 times since 2013 when we updated the code. So rather than just updating that green construction code, because there were just so many changes that didn't really pertain to Maplewood and it wasn't flexible for Maplewood, we have decided to turn towards the performance-based codes, as I believe it is about 6 to 8 other cities in Minnesota that have adopted those performance-based codes. So in addition to the performance-based codes, looking at the green standards, and there were 4 that the Environmental Commission wanted to review: EV vehicles, renewable energy, predicted greenhouse gas emissions and actual energy use, and then also last month we also defined waste diversion. So I wanted to give you an update on the previous proposal when we first started looking at this, and then from our discussions from last month, the new proposal and get some feedback on each of these and see where we maybe need some modification. So the previous proposal was based off of that sustainability guide that we had been referring to over the last year, created by the Center for Energy and Environment. They gave some recommendations on how cities could adopt such a code. And they had some simple language for some of the green standards. And for the electric vehicle charging capability, they called out a city could just start with requiring the installation of conduit that allows charging stations to be installed at a future date, so under a green construction code, just making sure that the parking lot was wired as such so that it's easy to install that electric vehicle charging station in the future. So since our discussion about the other cities that have EV standards and also looking at the Minnesota Department of Labor and Industry code change proposal, which we had heard will possibly be adopted next year and then be included in the building code, the state building code, as a requirement for any new construction. So it wouldn't even be, you know, just the over and above green construction codes that some cities have in place. So we wanted to ensure that we're meeting at a minimum that Department of Labor standard, which of course is in draft form right now, but we reviewed that. And two of the things that we wanted to look at were, number one, adding some definitions for what does it mean to be EV installed versus EV ready, and then also coming up with requirements for the number of parking stalls for each of those categories. So here's a definition that I have proposed for the EV installed space, which means a designated automobile parking space that has a dedicated connection for charging an electric vehicle at a minimum level of 2 charging. So we wanted to ensure it was that higher charging level, not just a level 1. So that would be the EV installed, having an actual electric vehicle charging station at a stall. And then the EV ready would be a space, means a designated automobile parking space that has sufficient electrical capacity installed in the space by means of branch circuit capable of supporting the installation of an electric vehicle charging station, providing at a minimum level 2 charging. So again, ensuring that the electrical is there so it's an easy install in the future. Because, you know, once that parking lot is installed, you don't want to have to rip it up again to install that electrical or, you know, put the conduit in to connect to that. And then we'll touch on the requirements that the Department of Labor and Industry went into, and then I have an example for you, and then we can pause and talk about this, the EV vehicle green standards. So here we looked at last month, they had defined based on the number of parking spaces, you know, kind of a scaled effect. So the larger the number of parking spaces, the more EV installed and EV ready spaces. So they start at under 25, they weren't recommending any, but over 25 to 50, 50 to 75, and so on. And here in Maplewood, I'll give you an example, but it's rare that we'd have more than 400 parking spaces, except for like at the Maplewood Mall, which of course there are. So here's an example that I pulled together. This is the Wakefield Community Building. This is our newest park building. Was built approximately 3 to 5 years ago, and it holds a maximum of 70 people for events, and it also has a small warming house in it for winter use. It's 10,000 square feet in area, and in the original plans that I pulled up here, they were calling for 50 parking stalls. And when we look back at the chart, the 50 parking stalls kicks in the requirement for 3 EV actual installed and 2 EV ready. But then when I went to an aerial photo and looked at the number of parking stalls, it was only 46 that was actually installed. So that kicks it down to this requirement of 25 to 50, which is 2 EV installed and 1 EV ready. So that gives you kind of a good idea of what we're looking at in looking at that scaled kind of effect. So I'll just pause for some comments, questions on the EV green standard.
One question, and I think you're leading into this too, but how these preliminary figures compare against the draft Department of Labor code that's being proposed?
So these are exactly
They are
from
exactly.
that
Oh, okay,
code,
okay.
yeah.
Missed that. Thank you.
I like the use of the definitions. It's very clear language, and also I think having it laid out just with those two types of installed versus ready. I know there were some codes that were talking about capable as well, and that I think potentially adds confusion or complexity that's probably not needed. So I like that approach.
I'll go back on that definition there. And, you know, we can obviously tweak this, but there were a lot of definitions out there in various codes, so I kind of pulled together one thought made sense.
Yeah, I agree. I like these definitions, and particularly that they're very specific about the level of charging. And I think they're very approachable. They're very clear, but they're also very understandable. So I like these definitions.
Yeah, I second the definitions. Does make things a lot more clear and concise compared to what the state is preliminary proposing. One question, and I believe we discussed it last meeting, but I'll need a refresher. But once the Department of Labor adopts the new state building code, would the city then reevaluate what is in our green building code? Because the goal of the green building code is to go above and beyond standard requirements. So is it something we'd visit at that time, or something that we should try to anticipate now?
That'd certainly be something I would recommend, and it's, I don't exactly know how the rulemaking process works. Once the task force with the Department of Labor and Industry is complete, you know, where it goes from there, I believe, well, the legislature has to approve it. And then, you know, every 3 years, they approve a new energy code. So this, and building code. And the building code was just adopted, a new one for 2024. So, you know, we're probably not looking until 2027, so a few
Okay.
years.
Yeah,
But yes, that would certainly be my recommendation.
to review it in
Right.
27.
Yeah.
Yeah, so adopt what's drafted as the green building code, and then in 27 reevaluate based on what was actually adopted.
And let's say the city of Maplewood adopts amendments, this new code, early next year. We're not certain these EV charging requirements is what will end up in the building code. It's just,
Right.
we're kind of piggybacking off of some work from a task force who has been really diving into this detail. And so we have some good research behind us, or they have supplied us with that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, that makes sense to me.
So then,
So we had talked, I just have one, we had
Yeah.
talked about, there was one of the cities had a proposal or had something that like 80% of the spaces needed to have conduit, not necessarily any of the electrical run for future expansion of EV charging. And I thought we had looked at that and thought that was an easy thing to do for when you're building it, but not necessarily run the electricity. It was just having the, I'm not an electrician, is it having the is that what it's called, the conduit, where you run the electrical cord through? Is that any bit on this? That's not the EV ready space, right? Because that actually talks about the electrical charging. A branch circuit capable, is that?
What I heard last month, you and Commissioner Redmond were kind
Right.
of going back and forth, and I thought I heard that having EV ready is probably the least the city could require. I mean, it would be the easiest for the city to require that. But
And does that involve running electrical, or is that just the conduit? Sorry.
yeah, let me get my electrician hat on here.
Yeah.
Electrical capacity installed in the space. Okay, so they have the wires as such.
Yeah, so like the conduit would be brought to the space or near the space, but the actual charging infrastructure wouldn't be installed. I think where this definition gets at the EV ready is extend it to the space, whereas like how the state's defining it, EV capable, I believe it just basically extends conduit to say a parking island, not necessarily all the way to the space with the additional infrastructure, if I'm understanding it correctly.
So now maybe we're rethinking that EV capable might be a good idea?
I'm fine with how it's written. I'm just trying to kind of brainstorm how, because I'm also not an electrician, but explaining my maybe misunderstanding of it.
Where's Redmond when we need him?
Right. COVID schmovid.
Yeah, go back one. It was the St. Paul one. Yeah, EV capable.
Capable.
Oh, Lord.
All right, so let's take a look at, so this was a presentation from last month, and we'll take a look at the Department of Labor and Industry definition. Okay, EV capable, raceway or cable assembly installed. Raceway.
Should we Google it? The branch, for me, I don't know what the branch electric
Yeah.
conduit is. Is that just the conduit and it just means what we want it to mean? Or,
Yeah, these are great questions.
I'm very sorry.
No, like if you're not actually installing electrical or conduit and it's just,
Because we thought that was the easiest thing, is if you are just installing conduit, you can easily and cheaply do that, and then it's there for future use.
right. Okay. What is the difference between EV ready and capable, and further research
Yeah.
requiring both? Okay, because, the way I heard it was that the EV ready is something, well, first I heard from Commissioner Redmond also that you probably don't need an EV capable definition. Keep it simple, EV ready, EV installed. But then I heard your discussion between the two of you about, EV capable, that's like something, we'd be setting them up for success. So, require that.
So,
Yeah.
So it does say on google.com, a raceway is a protected conduit that provides a physical path for electrical wiring.
So it's a tube.
That's really, right, that's what the
Okay.
raceway is. But then, I don't understand what cable assembly is.
So it's probably just like a location for the cable to be installed,
Right.
the infrastructure, and then I
Yeah.
think they just have to like directionally install it or bore it in.
Yeah, and the cable assembly is actually an electrical line.
So in our example, I didn't do a whole big chart here, but on the bottom of this page, it talks about the parking spaces between 26 and 50, which is what we looked at the Wakefield. In addition to the 1 EV ready and 2 EV installed, it would have the 6 EV capable. Okay, so we'll further research those three varying requirements for EV. But do you think we're headed in the right direction by kind of following the Department of Labor and Industry standards?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Mhm.
Sean? It does say that the electrical conduit, or the assembly conduit is the same almost as the raceway, that those two things are just the tube,
Oh,
on Google.com. Again, I'm not a licensed electrician, and neither is he.
okay, so, electrical, space, yeah, it just says sufficient electrical. I'm gonna bring this back.
Yeah,
Just
okay.
this definition between EV ready and EV capable. We'll dive deeper in
I
that.
thought it was kind of the same thing.
All right.
Okay,
So,
moving on, sorry.
Yeah, thanks for bringing up those questions. Then the second green standard we wanted to look at was the predicted greenhouse gas and actual energy use. The previous, again, being based off of the Sustainable Building Code document from Center for Energy and Environment. Predicted greenhouse gas emissions, calculate and report. So we took a look at a couple different cities that have that requirement and thought that Rochester and St. Paul's sustainability policy, which required predicted and actual energy use and greenhouse gas emissions to actually meet the SB 2030 energy standard through design and operation. Did I further give you, no, I didn't give any examples there, but in the staff report, I did indicate that the B3 Sustainable Building 2030 energy standards are required for all state-bonded Minnesota buildings, and then, of course, other organizations can utilize that, and this will be one of our performance-based codes that will allow buildings to be built under this sustainable policy. But the SB 2030 Energy Standard is a progressive energy conservation program designed to significantly reduce the energy and carbon in Minnesota commercial, institutional, and industrial buildings. And so what it means is every 5 years, the total carbon emissions target from buildings is reduced so that in 2030, 100% reduction will take place, basically net zero. And so compliance with that standard is achieved by a combination of on-site renewable energy generation and energy efficiency. So the the developer would have to show how much energy that building would use and then calculate the greenhouse gas emissions and then how they'll meet that energy reduction over time. I'm not sure how they do that. I bet there's a commissioner here that might have some comments and feedback on that, but we all thought that this was probably the best option of the various standards that we looked at. So I'll just pause and see if you have any comments or questions.
I'd just like to say I like how the revised Code is written focusing on the SB 2030, looking at other organizations that have adopted that and kind of using a more successful and already formulated model, I think is a good direction for City of Maplewood to go to.
And we had learned, oh, excuse me,
Oh,
I'll just
go ahead.
finish my thought. We had learned that you really have to do the prediction of the actual energy use to get the greenhouse gas predictions anyway, so it's not like we're making extra work of it.
I was just going to add a comment also that I like that this is, you know, kind of consistent with how the state requirements for state-funded buildings. I think that puts us in the good direction there as well.
The third green building standard we are going to look at is utilization of renewable energy. The previous text proposed was evaluate 2% of on-site renewables and install if cost-effective using SB 2030 guidance. And in looking at some other codes that are out there, we decided to base the renewable energy standards on Minneapolis's sustainable building policy, which is to meet 10% of annual energy need on-site through renewables if cost-effective, through use of social cost of carbon and 15-year simple payback. Project must be solar capable. So, number one, you have to build it so it has that capability to have solar installed. And I believe we have some definitions here. And then also, a definition for cost-effective, and then what meeting 10% of annual energy need means here, and I have an example. Oh, didn't I include the definitions? Let's see. Oh, yes, I
Yeah.
apologize. So the definitions we included was social cost of carbon is an estimate of the cost in dollars of the damages done by each additional ton of carbon emissions. And it's a calculation that climate energy scientists look at. And then the solar capable is a building that is designed with several key features to facilitate the installation and efficient operation of solar energy systems, including roof orientation and angle, roof space, roof strength, conduit and wiring, electrical panel capacity, and designated space for inverters. So I know in the past that has been kind of a question mark. What does solar capable mean? It could mean just building a building so it's south facing, you know, with a roof that could have solar panels. So we want to ensure that it meets all of these requirements. And so I know I don't have that definition in front of you, but if you do have it in your packet here, if you want to take a look at that and see if that definition needs any tweaking to ensure we're requiring all of those things.
I think it looks good as written, but maybe on solar capable, including something along the lines, so it goes into including roof orientation, et cetera, you just have including but not limited to, just in case something else becomes apparent that city staff would like to review as part of this after code adoption, just to leave it with a little more flexibility, but also having set parameters within the definition as well.
Right. Or should we say solar capable is a building that is designed with the following features? Because we're kind of making it sound like it's designed with several key features and you can pick and choose.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the following.
It's a good idea. I like that.
There's that conduit and wiring again. All right, so then my example here is, again, the Wakefield Community Building, which, by the way, was designed to be solar capable. Now, I never followed up to determine if it actually has, I think it has the electrical conduit and wiring, but it also has a really slightly sloped roof that faces south. So it's ready to have those solar panels installed. And this was one of the buildings that was built under our current green construction code. Again, it's a 10,000 square foot building. And I did look up, the city of Maplewood, we track our energy use in all of our buildings under the B3, state of Minnesota B3, which is a requirement for us as a part of the Green Step cities, and looking at our greenhouse gas emissions every year. So the Wakefield building in 2023 used 48,271 kilowatt hours for the entire year. And now I did a quick kind of estimate based on my research. And average solar panel, I read, is 250 to 400 watts per average. That's how much energy it can produce. And then you determine how many panels you need. There's this calculation based on the energy used and then the total number of, I guess, solar producing days in your area. And in Minnesota, it's 135 that produces energy in general. So there's a calculation you do. And it said that for the Wakefield Community Building to cover 100% of that energy that's needed, you'd need 143 solar panels. Now, I don't know if that's quite accurate, but we're just giving you a visual here. So 2% of that requirement would be 29 solar panels. Which doesn't seem like a lot, but you can imagine a really large building, you know, that'd be much more extensive. What do you think about that 2%?
And that was the previous one, correct?
This is based on Minneapolis's code.
Because Minneapolis, I thought it said meet 10% of annual energy.
Is that what? Where am I getting this? Oh, you're right. Okay. I hastily put this PowerPoint together before the meeting, so I do apologize. So, hey, look at this now. So 10% of that would be what? Let's do the math. Oh. And where'd I get 29 solar panels? Let's see.
Yeah, 14.
Yeah. All right. Well, you can see my brain was a little foggy trying to, so it's worse. Okay. 10% renewables, 14 solar panels, which 10% sounds better than 2%, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. And again, requiring that cost evaluation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Should I research any, like, different percentages or different ways of looking at that? Number one, we want it to be solar capable,
Correct.
for sure, no matter what. And then if it is cost effective, to do the 10%.
So I think is the social cost of carbon definition, is that also within SB 2030 guidance? Because I think it'd just be good to reference that if it is, or Just to have a method for one to point to on determining the social cost of carbon.
Correcting my error there, live on TV. All right, so the social cost, you're saying, is a definition included in the SB 2030?
Yes, excuse me. Yes, and if it is included in the SB 2030, to include it within our definition. So social cost of carbon as defined by SB 2030, just so when folks are trying to determine the social cost of carbon, they have a tool to use versus trying to determine between various resources the damage done by a ton of carbon emissions.
So I did include that definition, which of course I didn't make a slide on that, but I'll make sure that this definition, social cost of carbon, see if that is actually in SB 2030.
Mm-hmm.
And if so, make sure the definitions,
Reference.
yeah, okay. All right. I'll move on to our last green standard, which is diversion of construction waste. So recycling, and this is just for new construction. It wouldn't be necessarily for demolition or reconstruction. So currently, it's just new construction. And this is a requirement of our current green construction code. So we wanted to ensure that we at least included this, continued this requirement. And we're looking at adding a definition. Construction debris means waste generated during construction and renovation. Oh, I did say renovation. These wastes include materials such as concrete, asphalt, bricks, wood products, roofing, drywall, plaster, carpet, plastics, metals, and other wastes. Recycle at least 75% of construction waste. You know, it's going to be harder to recycle something you're pulling out, you know, of a building, like an old carpet. So maybe we shouldn't include this renovation. It seems to me I may have just kind of added that in myself here. So we can kind of ponder that. But I have an example, again, my fuzzy math. This is Wakefield Community Building, and of course it's 10,000 square feet. And I kind of base this on what they said you might need for what you might generate with constructing a new home, based on that square footage. Now, I don't know if this is accurate, but allegedly they might generate 1,350 cubic yards of waste. I don't know if that's right, but we're just using this for example purposes. So you can see this, the largest dumpster they have is a 40-yard dumpster, and for that 10,000 square foot building, they might have 33 dumpsters coming and going throughout, you know, that whatever year-long process of building it, or 6 months. I don't know that that's accurate, but it's an example. So 75% diversion would be making sure that 26 of those 33 are, you know, being processed in a manner where the product is being recycled. You know, so if it's wood that you're using, ensuring that that wood is going somewhere where it's going to be reused rather than just going to landfill or burned for fuel. And again, this is something we already require, so we should probably just continue this requirement. What do you think about that definition? I should check to see what the green construction code currently says and make sure we're matching that requirement.
Even if we could say, if possible, renovation, you know, if there is some stuff from the renovation that can be recycled,
Right.
where it's not a has to be, but if possible.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot more variability in a renovation that it would be hard to guarantee that that could be met
Right.
versus new construction.
One resource, I think it's Reuse Minnesota through Department of Labor and Industry, maybe looking at past projects and potentially have a different percentage for renovation projects, say 25% versus 75 on
Ah,
a
yeah.
new build. Make that differentiation there.
And also, looking at our definitions for when the green building code kicks in. Now, it's for new construction for sure, but under the green construction code, and I can't remember what we added here for the performance-based, at what point that would kick in if you're doing a renovation, like let's say City Hall was going to be renovated, to what percent or dollar amount or square footage, making sure we double back and look at that as well.
Also on square footage, I guess, just reading through like the process that staff would go through, like determining if it's a smaller project, that'd kind of be done in-house or by the contractor with staff mix. And then if it was a larger project, having a third-party recycling company oversee that. I think to the point of square footage, like it's creating a threshold greater than 5,000 square feet, require just an example, require a third-party recycling company to oversee it, and then below a certain threshold, it's not required but encouraged, something along those lines.
Right. All right. Very good. So the next steps here would be, I guess we have a little bit more work to do and kind of refine things. But our next meeting will be November, as in October we're going on a tour of the Recycling and Energy Center. So I'll bring this back in November with our additional details, and then hopefully we'll kind of have a rough draft, and then we're able to then work with our building department and community development department to ensure, we're on the right track here. So thank you for your comment and feedback. Appreciate that.
All right, then we're on to item number 6, new business. I don't think there's any of that, or any visitor presentations. Commissioner presentations. Was there anyone potentially at the tennis sanitation recycling facility that wanted to give an update? No? I'll leave that up to staff then. For staff presentation, climate mitigation planning update. Update?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do have a few slides here for our staff presentations, and perhaps we could lump this into the commissioner updates, because 2 of our commissioners are on the climate mitigation planning team. And I'll just point out that we've had 3 task force meetings, and of course, we're working with a group of about 20 residents, business owners, individuals from our partner organizations like the Watershed District and Ramsey County. And we're doing this collaborative meeting of the minds and looking at goals and then action items. And so we met on September 3rd was our 3rd workshop. And we've kind of finalized the goals for the 3 areas, being building and energy, transportation, and solid waste. So we're really looking at those 3 areas for greenhouse gas emission reduction goals. And so based on that information and also the feedback from our department heads, and we will be holding a actual community meeting on September 26th. So everyone is invited in the community to take a look at those draft goals, look at the baseline documents that go into the city's current greenhouse gas emissions, and you know, how we've seen it change since we started measuring that back in 2015. And, you know, predictions on, you know, how much we'd have to reduce in order to meet certain goals. And so then looking for feedback from the community on that. And that'll be held at that Wakefield Community Building that we just spotlighted in several of those examples. And again, that's September 26th. It's a Thursday, 5:30 to 7 p.m. And it's there will be a presentation in the beginning, and then time for that input after that. So it's best to show up right away if you can. It's not really like an open house. But with that, maybe I will just pause and see if one of the commissioners that's participating in this climate mitigation planning team has any other comments or feedback.
Yes, I'm within the that planning team. I'm on the Buildings and Energy subcommittee or group, and the goals that we established were generally around energy efficiency and fuel switching from natural gas and other fuels, carbon fuels, to electricity based, and then renewable energy. Key takeaways from our group were around having these goals be obtainable and measurable. And there, we also noted that having working on the green building code here with the city can also help with the municipal side of the goals that we're working towards. And so we're seeing some synergies there, even as we're developing the goals. So.
Yeah, and I'm in the land use and transportation group, and a lot of the goals in our group is centered around organized land use planning. So one of the goals is like focusing on density of residents per acre. So building up, not out necessarily, and trying to locate residential developments near transportation, shopping hubs, things like that. So then a lot of the other things too are transportation focused. And just looking at the process as a whole, we're looking at goals, and then right now we're about to finalize those, and then just getting into actions that are going to support the goals. Then we have some screening criteria. One of those screening criteria, I think, is obtainable and measurable, so then we can kind of see which goals we want to prioritize and actions and things like that. And the meetings have been great. A lot of really good, thoughtful discussions, I think, in all groups. So I'm really excited to see how it turns out.
Thank you. And I've been working with the solid waste group, and we, of course, learned that solid waste is probably the lowest in the pie chart of our greenhouse gas emissions, but still a lot of work we could do. Looking at goals for reducing trash, increasing recycling, and reducing food scrap. So those are the three main goals. So thank you. And then, moving on here, I wanted to update you on the trash and recycling contract extension. So Tennis and Republic Services, as you know, was interested in working on a 2-year extension to their contract. Both of the contracts expire June 30 of 2025, and there was no language in there about extensions, but we negotiated with them and came up with a good proposal, and the City Council looked at that in June and had a little bit more feedback and wanted us to continue working on a few items. Two of those items were, number one, with Republic Services, who does the trash hauling, ensuring that we came up with some language on delinquent accounts, because how they were charging that in the past was a little unclear. The contract stated that they could charge up to 8% of the past due amount. And what they had been doing over the years was charging the 8%, but then compounding, that late fee on top of the next late fee. So it wasn't really how the city had intended that in the beginning. So in the end, they agreed to doing a flat fee. So it's just like a $5 late fee now if you're late more than 1 month now. So it'll reduce the amount of late fees that some property owners were experiencing, because, of course, after about a year, Republic can turn in all the late fees to the city to be certified onto the taxes. It's a process when you have an organized trash hauling system. So that was one area, and then the other area was looking at both of the haulers and trying to ensure that we're looking at different translation opportunities. Now, it's hard to do when you're midstream in a contract to make those type of requirements, but as an example, Tennis Sanitation in the past, they didn't have anything on their website that would translate any kind of version. So now they've done that. So on the bottom of the website, you can translate into Spanish. And then Republic Services, they do most of the customer service because, of course, they do all the billing. So ensuring that they had some alternative language opportunities if someone did not speak English, So we worked on those two final items. And then the pricing, of course, was a big issue. So both Tennis and Republic are going to kind of continue this stepped approach with some increases, but nothing drastic. So I think it'll be a real benefit to the residents. It'll keep costs low and keep the good service and clear up a few things that have kind of come to light since the contracts were initiated in 2020. So the City Council adopted that during their last City Council meeting, which was, September 9th, I believe. So thanks for your review of this kind of in the initial stages, but the work will really begin when we have to start looking at a request for proposal for new contracts. And, you want to give the contractors time, so we'll probably have to start looking at that beginning of next year. Kind of looking at the goals the city wants, especially in light of our climate mitigation plan and meeting those goals, what we want to see from a contractor based on our solid waste program. So look for more on that. And updates on the solid waste tours. We did take the recycling facility tour on Wednesday, September 11th. We went down to Tennis's material recovery facility. And Tennis is one of a few mid-size haulers that actually has a MRF, which is what they're called, where they actually bring in the recyclables and sort them and then process them and distribute them to the end markets where they're made into products. So we took a look at their facility, and it was pretty interesting. There was about 7 of us. We had one environmental commissioner there and one city council member, and I invited a couple of the climate mitigation plan team members who were working on that waste area of specialty, and a couple of our green team members. So I see one of our commissioners that was at the meeting. Do you have any other follow-up on that?
It was just very interesting, the processing of all of the recyclables that came in, that they've designed their own kind of sorting and ways to really separate everything out, including trash that then goes to the incinerator. So it was very interesting.
Tennis takes all plastics where some of the other haulers don't. So that's one reason why Maplewood's what they call residuals, or the amount of trash that gets into the recyclables is a lot less. Because, plastics are so confusing to recycle because they all have the chasing arrows, 1 through 7. And you think just because it has a chasing arrow, it can be recycled. And that's not always the case, especially in some programs. But with tennis sanitation, they do take all recyclable or plastics except for styrofoam. So we did learn that's one of the reasons Maplewood's residuals are so low.
Like plastic bags too?
And no plastic bags.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm.
They did attempt to recycle plastic bags for about a year or two when there was a company that was using the bags and they would melt them down into some sort of crude oil. But that never panned out, and ever since then, since they introduced it and now took it away, people still get confused and put the plastic bags in there. And we saw this, didn't we, Commissioner Edwards? A lot of the plastic bags were getting thrown down into that residual pile.
Yep. Yeah, and they also recycle linens. So all linens can go on top, well, whatever, that they have, how they have it designed. But yeah, they do recycle linens, which is also unusual.
Yes, it was interesting. And then and these tours were a requirement of both Tennis and Republic Services, their work plan, working with the Environmental Commission to make improvements. So Tennis offered the tour of their facility, and then we'll work with Republic Services on the next tour, which is scheduled for Tuesday, October 22nd at 4 p.m. It's a tour of the Ramsey Washington Recycling and Energy Center, and this is where all trash from Ramsey County is brought and tipped. And in addition, now the food scraps, with the food scrap program, those durable compostable food scrap bags get tipped on the floor along with the trash, and those get pulled out and separated. So this will be the first time I've been there. I've been there once before they did the food scrap, but it'll be real interesting to see how those are sorted and that process. And so I attempted to do it on the same night as the Environmental Commission, but they don't offer tours on Monday nights. So it's the next night, it's the 22nd. And I thought, since we're doing that, we could actually call that our meeting. So we'll post that a quorum of the commission could be at this. And we'll also invite our city council members as well. And I'll send out additional information, but we'll make sure we cancel the meeting on Monday, October 21st, and then kind of reschedule to this date. And I'll offer a ride share. We'll have our city van if you want to meet here, and we can all take off together, or you can just meet us at the facility, which is in Newport. So more information to follow. And then finally, an environmental education and outreach opportunity, one of the last kind of city events that we're holding for the year. You recall that the touch truck and the fireworks event in June and July had to be canceled or rescheduled due to weather-related issues. And the city has come up with a creative way of putting those together now and calling it the Friday Night Fireworks. So this will be held at Hazelwood Park, which is where 4th of July events are usually held. And it'll be Friday, September 20th from 5 p.m. and then the fireworks go off at 8. So all the trucks, including Republic Service and Tennis and a lot of our public works vehicles, and so they're all parked, and kids, this is really a fun event for kids because they're allowed to kind of get into the cabs and look around and talk to the people about what they do with the big trucks. And so it's a great way to do some outreach when the kids are busy kind of climbing all over the trucks, to kind of talk to the parents. And this would be our last opportunity to do some outreach on the Climate Mitigation Plan survey, which will be closing up on September 30th, so we can use the results of that survey to include in our draft plan that we're creating. So I am working with, we have a new AMPACT member, they call it Climate Corps, And she will be with us from, well, she just started, and then she'll be here until June, working with the Parks and Natural Resources Department on, issues with our trees as well as some of our climate planning. And she'll be at the event, and she'll do some outreach, but we really would appreciate a second person because she'll be doing a project with the kids, some solar beads, which are always fun, kind of teaches the kids about solar energy and renewable energy, and then it's these fun beads that turn colors in the sun. So, you kind of get caught up in this project with the kids, but if we had someone else there to talk to the parents and talk to them about this survey that we're doing, it's a quick survey. We have a QR code, you go online, it takes like 2 minutes to complete. So I'll send out an email and see if anyone is interested in assisting with that. But you'll have front row to the fireworks if you do it. All right. And that is all I have. Thank you so much.
Thank you, staff. I believe that brings us to adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I will make a motion to adjourn.
We have a motion. Do we have
I
a
will second.
A motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned at 8:06.